people stayed there before the cross, watching Jesus. As for the leaders, they jeered at him. He saved others, they said. Let him save himself, if he is the Christ of God, the chosen one. The soldiers mocked him too, and when they approached to offer him vinegar, they said, If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself. Above him there was an inscription, This is the King of the Jews. One of the criminals hanging there abused him. Are you not the Christ? He said. Save yourself and us as well. But the other spoke up and rebuked him. Have you no fear of God at all? He said. You got the same sentence as he did, but in our case we deserved it. We are paying for what we did, but this man has done nothing wrong. Jesus, he said, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Indeed, I promise you, he replied, today you will be with me in paradise. The good news of the Lord. My dear brothers and sisters, on this, the feast of Christ, the King of the universe, I remember that a little over a year ago, before coming to this current parish of mine, in my old parish, I was assaulted by a drug-addicted woman who had come to the parish office with the intention of extorting money from me. At the time, I could do very little since I did not want to get myself into any kind of trouble. The incident occurred on the very same day that I had been called in by the Archbishop, who informed me that he needed me to move from where I was working, a parish in which I was quite happy. The incident or the day stands out as a particularly low period in my ministry as a Roman Catholic pastor. Today, schooled as we are by examples of leaders from the realm of politics, we have this tendency to think of leaders as people who are invulnerable and all-powerful. We don't normally associate leaders with those low and negative experiences which are so much a part and parcel of human existence. Violence, betrayal, misunderstanding, heartbreak, loneliness. We see leaders as a class apart, as if they had some natural immunity to suffering and discomfort. The portrait of Jesus the King or Jesus the leader is quite different. And in the gospel reading for today's feast, we find Jesus at a particularly low point in his leadership. He is dying on a Roman cross, and all his followers have fled. But what must have been the hardest part of this experience was the taunting of the Jewish leaders, the taunting of the soldiers, the taunting even of one of the men condemned with him to die. He saved others, they said. Let him save himself if he is the Christ of God, the chosen one. Several years ago, after finishing an evening service at the parish in which I was serving as transitional deacon, I was approached by a female parishioner who told me how good I was, how she enjoyed listening to me, and how my homilies brought real meaning into her life. That was a particularly important revelation for me, since around that very time, I was going through an endless trial with my bosses with whom I was in some difficulty. I was languishing in the diaconate. And so, at this moment of crisis, I found myself frustrated, since, like Jesus in today's gospel reading, I could do nothing to save myself. I had to do things God's way or no way. And yet, the voices of negativity and doubt reverberated in my spirit. If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself. And yet, I could do nothing to save myself. And the only answer I got in prayer was the lesson of patience and the lesson of silence. And yet, that evening, for the very first time, I came to the realization that whatever happened to me, however things would turn out, I was going to be okay, because in the midst of the storm, I was walking on solid ground and God had my back. I was not alone. I was at a low point in my life as a young leader, and yet God had not abandoned me. In the years that have gone by since then, reflecting on the experience, one of the pieces of wisdom that I distilled from it was that low moments come into our lives and then they go. And it is absolutely important for all of us not to make of the low moments of our lives more than we should. In fact, a deeper piece of wisdom that I gleaned from that experience during my diaconate was this, that it was important to humbly submit oneself to the ebb and flow of life and allow God to support you. Let us pray on this, the feast of Christ the King, the man who is king and leader, whose leadership does not buy him invulnerability, whose leadership does not make him any less human than we are. On this feast of Christ the King, our ideal leader, let us pray that you and I would have the wisdom to humbly submit to the ebb and flow of life, that we would walk through life trusting that God will always take our hand, and that the low moments, terrible as they may be, they come and they will go.